purpose of these sessions is to help you practice on problem solving. These sessions are not going to be like explaining topics from scratch, but it will be about problem solving. This time we are going to solve some problems on classes and objects, the concepts of object-oriented programming. We will start with coding right away. We will need to design and implement a class called sphere that contains one data member or one attribute, which is diameter. This diameter needs to be non-negative. And a class has a one constructor that takes the parameter diameter. And we need to create setter and getter for the diameter. The next step, we will do two methods to calculate the surface area and the volume of the diameter. Finally, we will test the class and add some kind of a print method that when we print the details of the parameter in a neat way. So let's go to code right away. This is a class in a separate package called, we called it sphere. So we have one attribute. This is going to be, first of all, private. As usual, you set all the attributes. The type of diameter is expected to be double, and the name is diameter. We are done with the first step. Then we need to provide a setter and getter method for the attribute. Fastest way is to ask Eclipse to do it. We can go to source, generate setters and getters, and here we can select the diameter. So Eclipse will generate get diameter and set diameter method. In the question, we need you to ignore negative values for the diameter. Users of your class are going to use set diameter to provide the value for the diameter. So it's a good idea always to do some validation, like you check if diameter, for example, is less than or is greater than 0, you accept it. You accept the value and use it for your data member. Else, you can set it to 0, for example. So if the user provides a negative value, for example, you will set it to 0. So this way, in the set method, you do a check. If the user provides 5, it's accepted. Otherwise, if it's a negative value, it's going to be set to 0. Let's go back to the question here. We need to provide a constructor that accept and initialize the diameter and include getter and setter methods for the diameter. This is good. So constructors are the starting point of your code, of your object. Whenever later you're going to create a new class or a new object from this class, you're going to create or call the constructor. So you can also use the help of Eclipse, generate constructor using fields. In this, you can create constructor that takes no parameters. We call it default constructor. As you see here, public sphere. Don't worry about the super keyword. We'll study it in 2-3 weeks. You can create multiple constructors. You can come here and call the same thing again. You can create a constructor that takes a parameter. So now in your class, you have two constructors. One is called default constructor that takes no parameters. The other is called a parameterized constructor, which takes only one parameter. Actually, our class has only one parameter. Next, we need to provide two methods. One to get the volume of the sphere, the other to get the surface area of the sphere. You can copy paste the formulas from here. Here are the formulas. We can come back to the code here and let's see what we're going to do. Both must be public. Both are going to return double. Let's call the first one get volume. Takes no parameter. It does not need anything. Just quick here. Let me just paste the formulas. So now in order for this one to work, I can say double volume that is equal to 4.0. I am doing 0 to avoid integer division problems. Then multiplied times by pi. I can get the value of pi from the math library directly. Then I can say, okay, times power math, again, dot power. We need the radius squared, diameter, and raised to the power 2. I think we need to divide the diameter by 2. This is not a big problem to us. So this is the volume, how to calculate it. I can return the volume now. So whenever you call this class, it will get the diameter, do the calculations, and return it to the user. I need another method to get the surface area. Here, I'm going to call it get surface area. And in this method, we're going to say double surface area equals to, need now to do 4 times pi times, I think this is good. This is the surface area. So this is how we calculate the surface area. So now let me get rid of this. And our class so far has 2 constructors. You can instantiate it either from the default constructor or the parameterized constructor. You can use the set diameter. You can use all the other public things. It has only one data member. Let me just read some of your messages. Some messages, but I really cannot see them since let me see. Okay, volume should be radius and power. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong in this. Yani maybe I'm wrong, okay, but it can be yani you can correct me, but I'm doing Java now, okay? You understand, guys, right? You understand. I felt something is wrong with this, but that's fine. Yani we can do Java now. Let's focus on the data types, return, and these things, and the correctness of the syntax. We can come back to this. Now I need to test this class. I can go to create a tester. Another package, yeah. One. I'll say sphere tester. I'll make a main method here. So I am in a different package. The package name is test. I will test the tester. In order to be able to use the tester, I will need to do import model det sphere. Now I can create sphere objects. Sphere S1. I can say new sphere. This way I am using the first constructor. I will use create another object S2 equals new sphere, and this time I'm going to use the parameterized constructor. So I created two sphere objects from the sphere class. Let me give the first one radius s1.set diameter 3 or 1.8. Now the only parameter needed is set. Let us see if we can output some data. S1.get surface area, for example. Let me also do something from S2 just to make sure things are working fine. Get volume. I will run this code now. I'm getting the values of volume and diameter or surface area from both of them. So now let me go and see what else we need to do. We need to provide a print details method that gives you all the data of the sphere in one line in a neat way. So we'll do some string format. I'll go to the class again. Here should be a public method since you are going to be using it from anywhere. It will return a string. You can call it anything, print details or whatever. Later we will change this to string in the next 2-3 weeks. Best way to do this is to create a string. You can call it anything, details, and use a string.format function. So here I'm going to say, for example, diameter and %.2f. This way, we will output the diameter as a float, 2 decimals. Then I can use, for example, comma or space or tab. I can say now volume. And same thing, volume is going to be %.2f. All values are doubles here actually. Another tab now I will use, then I will say surface area. And again, one more time, %.2f. And a new line maybe is needed here. Maybe is not needed. So now I have 3 things to output. First one is the diameter, and it will be placed here. Second one is the volume. Third one is the surface area. So how to get them? I need to just call the functions. I can say this.get diameter, comma, this.get volume, the same order, this.get surface area. So now if we look at this, the string will be created, diameter, then the value of the diameter is retrieved from the get diameter, value of the volume retrieved from the get volume, and similarly for the surface area. I can say now return details. So for each object now, we can call this method and see what happens. I saved my code. I go back to the tester now. Instead of doing this, I just can call the s1.print details, and similarly I do s2.print details. So now for both spheres, we set the attribute, we call the print details. Let's see the output. So it looks like a neat output as you see here, diameter, volume, and surface area. That's it. One more thing I need to do here. Let me go to the constructor of this sphere here. In this constructor, you can set if the user calls it without any value. And sometimes they ask you to set the diameter initially for any value. This is fine. And you can say diameter is equal to 0. It's accepted fine normally. Later you can set it or change it. But at least is now there is a value. My concern is here, this one. When you call the second one, in this one, in this constructor, actually we are not doing any validation. In this constructor, we are doing something that is risky. We are going to accept the value directly without validating it. Okay, how to validate it? Do we need to copy paste the code? No. Instead of doing this, you can call the method set diameter with the value. So now, even if the user provides a negative value, see now, here, a negative value will be accepted. Let me show you that. I'll go to this one. I'll give one here, the second one, minus 3.5. If you look at our constructor, we are giving the value directly. This is wrong. Always, if you have a set method, use the set method, especially if you have validation in the set method. So now if I run this here, actually, it accepted the negative diameter value. So in order to avoid this, instead of taking the value directly, no, call the method. Do not copy the code. Do not copy the code. Call the method. That's it. I'm calling the method. And I know now why I don't want to copy the code. I know all the validation is done inside the set method. This is a good way to go, especially for debugging your code. So now, if I do this, as you see here, the negative value was not accepted. It was set to 0, as you see here. It's much better this. Why do we use this when we call a method? It's to avoid invalid values from being set. So now I'll go to this one here, to sphere tester. I'll just set it back to a positive value and run. Okay, I believe we are done with all the steps here needed. Design and implement sphere diameter, make sure it's non-negative. Set it to 1 if invalid. Actually, they want us to set it to 1. That's a simple thing. We can go and set it to 1 here in the sphere class. If the user provide negative value, set it to 1, which is fine. So this way we are done now with our first class, which is the diameter. We defined the class, created 2 constructors, creating set and get. We did some validation here. We did some processing or behavior. We also did some kind of a print details that takes care of all the details in one method instead of calling all the functions whenever we need them. Let's see if we have any questions here. Okay. Let me see the chat. I'm new to WebEx, so please be why another package? Abdullah, usually another package, when we create classes, we organize classes in separate packages. In Java, you need to get used to create so many classes in your project. So what I did today, I just created a package called the sphere model, where I'm going to put all my classes. And I created another package called tester. I'll be just testing. Anyone can use the classes. You can create any other package. You can do it inside the same package, but usually classes are organized in separate package. Import sphere, model sphere. Import model sphere means what? The sphere is available in another class, in another package. The sphere is available in the model package, and you're trying to use it from the tester package. If you don't use import model sphere, the compiler would tell you, I don't know what is a sphere. I can use classes in the same package, but if you are using classes from another package, you need just to type import the package name and the class name if you want. If you don't provide the class name, you can put star. Star like this, all the classes in that package are going to be imported. It's better to be specific, so you only specify the classes that are needed. I will go to the next example now. Hopefully I answered some شرح حق lecture ولا lab. It's both actually, and you're gonna write code in the lecture and the lab, and the exam of the lecture will be writing code. Doctor, how did you call the set diameter method in the instructor? It shows an error. I don't see an error here. Maybe you are writing a code with me and you have some error somewhere. Okay. Doctor, why do we need to set diameter? Hopefully, I don't see any error here with set diameter. Okay. Next, we will see another example. I try to answer your questions, but honestly, I cannot answer them all. We are done with this one. Let's go to another one, which is a class car. Before we do the class car, let us see what are the attributes and the properties of the class car. First, create a class called car. Okay, good. That includes 3 instance variables. Perfect. Make, which is a string, year, which is integer, and price, which is double. See the next step. In addition to the default constructor, so they want us to do a default constructor, provide a constructor that initializes the 3 instance variable, provide set and get for each instance variable. All numeric data must be non-negative. Means that you need to do some validation if the user provides negative data. Let us at least do this part. Then we will do a print details problem, and we will continue from here. So now, car, make, and year, and price, default constructor, and one fully parameterized constructor. So let's go to Eclipse here. I'll go to the model package. I'll create a new class called car. Here is the car. Okay. Now, first thing is to think about the attributes. Private, all of them should be private. String, make. One, private, integer, year, model. And last one was price, I believe. Private, double, price is going to be double. And here we say price. Now we are done with these 3 things. Next step is to make set and get for all of them. You can go to Eclipse, generate setter and getter. You can select them all, and that's it. So now in Eclipse, you have set and get for all the 3 attributes. Some space here. We need 2 constructors now. The first constructor takes no parameters, which is a default constructor. So let me go to generate constructor using fields, deselect all, empty constructor, default constructor, as you see here. I remove the word super. At this stage, don't worry about it. In a week, you will. I need another constructor that takes all the 3 parameters. I go below that and call that constructor. And that's it. It's ready. So I have a constructor that take make, year, and price. So now we created a class called car, has 3 attributes, make, year, and price. I have 2 constructors. One is a default constructor, and the other is fully parameterized constructor that takes all the parameters. I have set and get for everything. I'm not doing any validation here. So you can create car objects using either this constructor or the other one. If you create a car object using this constructor, these attributes will be empty. If it's a string, it will be null. If it's a numeric value, it will be 0. So if you create it, use this constructor, you need to use the set method to give values to all the 3 instance variables. I'll go here again and do some kind of print details. Let us go here. I'll copy this method from another class, but I'll modify it. Print details. Okay. Format, here I can say make. Make is a string. If it's a string, %s is the best thing here to do. And the second one is going to be tab. It's going to be year. Year is an integer. With integer, you can use D. D for integer, %d. No need for dot here. And I believe I made a mistake somewhere here. It's %s for capital S will give you all the text in uppercase letters. So we have make, year, and I believe we have price. Good. And this is the price. The price will be a float value, so %2f is fine. Now I need to find the values for all of these things. So for the make, I can say this dot get make. Good. this dot get make, comma. For the year, I can say this dot get year and this dot get price for the price. So now I created like a print details method where I can output the data of the car. Let's do some tester where I create two objects and test them. Still, I need to make some modifications on those objects, but let us just, I'll go to the tester now. I'll say car tester with a main method. I am in a different package. If you want to use the car from the model package, you could say import model.car. So now I'll create two car objects here. Car C1 equals new car. Now this object, I did not set any values. This is, if I print it, it will be, we have an object, but the string, the make is not known. And since I did not provide any values for the year or the price, they will be zeros. Numerical values will be set to zeros if you don't provide anything. Let us see this first. C1 dot print details. Now, I believe C1 print details. Let me save this. Okay, it is car C1 print details. I made some mistake somewhere. Let's see here. What's the method name here? And okay, the method is undefined in the type car. So let me just save it. They say we don't know this method. Print detail. Okay. And I think it's going to work. Let's just see what happens if you call a object. As you see here, the object make is null, year is 0, price is 0. Okay, good, fine. Usually, you need to say, for example, C1.set make. Let us say you need to provide a string BMW, for example, here. And for the year, for example, you could say C1.set year and provide a valid value, and C1.set price and provide a price for the car. So now I set the values for the three attributes of the car object. C1 make is BMW, C1 year is 2020, C1 price is whatever value I provided here. Now, if I print it, as you see, the values were populated in their corresponding data members. I will create another car object now, car C2. This is another object, new car. But this time I'll use the fully parameterized constructor. I would say this is Toyota, and it's a 2019 car, and the price is 135,567.90. So now in this constructor, I already provided all the three data members or all the three attributes of the object. So I can directly go ahead and say C2.print detail. So we created two car objects, one using the default constructor, then we set all the attributes, we print the details. The second one, we use the second constructor, which is a fully parameterized constructor. And let me run this and show you the output. Here we see the second one, Toyota, and this much. So the question says you need to do some validation. All numeric data must be non-negative. Since all numeric data must be non-negative, you can go back to the code and do validation similar to the things we did last class or last example. So here I can go to set year, for example. Set year. I can say if year is greater than 0, then use it. Else, for example, this year dot equals to 2000. If the user provides an invalid value, make it 2000. I saw many countries, for example, they do the date of birth January 1st. This is just an example. It does not have to be real. But now, what we do with valid value, we accept it. With invalid value, we do something. That something depends on the example. Let's go to the price, set price. I will do the same thing. If price provided by the 0 is greater than 0, use it. But if it's not, it's negative, can temporarily set it to 0. Is equal 0. Now we avoid negative value again. So these are the two numeric values, year and price. And I believe in the previous example, I told you it's a good idea to call the methods if they are numeric, or if you have validation, do not use them directly like this. Because here still, they will accept the value and give it to the attribute. If you have validation, use the set method. So you can say set year equals year. So if the year value provided by the user is invalid, it will be validated there. And you do set price here and provide the price. Make the validation only in one place. Now our class will validate any invalid value. Let me go to the tester here. I'll make the C1 price minus 71 whatever. Let me run it here. As you see, the price was set to 0 because I provided invalid value. Similarly, if you provide something like year here, I just give -2, for example, which is invalid value. So the year will be set to 2000 maybe. Yeah, here, you see, year 2000, because when we called that method, it was, okay, was found to be invalid, and in the example said we could do anything depending on the example. So let's go back to the code here. Write a test application, we already did. Create two objects, tamam, perfect. Now they need us to make a method called apply discount. Apply discount is give discount on the price of the car. Let's see what the method is going to do. Apply discount method that receives one double parameter. Okay, it takes only percentage. Okay, like if you put 10, so you need to reduce the price of the car by 10%. You need to change the price of the car. So this method is called apply discount. It will take from you a percentage, which is going to be double. And it can be, for example, 10.5, 15.7, or whatever value. So let's go to the code, go to the car. Let me make a public method here and public void. This method will not return anything. It will just change the price of the car. Apply discount, the method. And it will take one parameter, which is double. I'll call it percent here. So when you call this method, you are expected to send something like 10, 15, 20, or something. So now let's see the discount, for example. Calculate discount first. Double discount is equal to this dot get price, get the price of the car, times percent over 100. So now we get the discount value, percent here. Let me change the word to the right thing here, percent. So now you find the discount value. You can now change the price. You could say set price or whatever, but you can make it complicated. If you want to make it simple, you can just say double price equals to this dot get price, okay, and then you find the new price is equal to price minus discount. So the new price is going to be a price minus discount, and you can now change the price of this dot set price, new price. So if the value of the car is 10,000 and you make 10%, the discount value will be 1,000. The price is still 10,000. Then you calculate the new price by subtracting the discount value from the original price and change the price. Let us see if this is going to work. Car test. So let me make this 50,000, the first BMW, 50,000. I will print its details. Then I will say C1 dot apply discount. Let me make it 10%, only 10%. 10% will make the new price 45,000. Let me output it also after I make the discount. So here in line 11, we are outputting the details of C1 object. Then we apply a discount and we are outputting all the details again after applying the discount. As you see here, the price was 50,000. Then we applied some discount and it worked as I see here. Let's do similarly here. I'll make this one 200,000. And before I print it, I'll say C2 dot apply discount 25%. Hopefully this code is going to work and no errors so far. Let me see if you have any questions in the chat here. Okay, price time. Yeah, you can make it. Actually, I made it very simple. I can make it calculating the is uppercase because of, yes, Toyota is uppercase because of using capital S. If you go here to the car, capital S will make the output always caps. It's good in this example. If you don't make it caps, it will take whatever value the user provided, and it will not change the case. Let me show you this. Okay, see, Toyota now is not all caps, right? If you want the output of some attribute to be all caps, make it percent caps capital S. Hopefully I explained this. An apply discount can be done in a simpler form, of course. Okay, and you can say just calculate the discount, and you can say this dot set price equals this dot get price minus discount. And if you want one step to do it, that's fine. We can do this. But here I'm teaching you Java. I try to not to cut corners. I try to make the example simple. I believe I made a mistake in calculating the volume and area of the sphere, but that's not a big deal for us here in Java class. We're going to worry about it in your calculus and geometry classes. So let's see if we finish the car class or still we need to do something else. I viewed the chat. Discount again. I did explain the chat, the discount briefly, and here's the discount. You calculate the discount first. If it's 10, you need to multiply it by 10%. So you get the price and calculate the discount. The price is 10,000, discount is 10%, you get 1,000, for example. Then you get the current price. Then the new price will be the current price minus discount. Then you set the value to the new price, depending on what discount percent. Here we call it with apply discount 25%, 10%, and so on. Of course, if you want to be smart and not do any invalid values, let me show you this. You could say if percent, for example, if percent is greater than or equal to 0 and percent, لا مش Java صار, okay, Python, and percent is less than or equal to 100. Yani you just do this if it's what? If it's a valid percent. Yani you cannot say 200%, for example. Okay, let me just do this. Here, you only apply discount if it's a valid value, like between 0 and 100%. Between 0 and 100%. Let me do the tester here, for example. Let me provide a discount like 300%, which is not going to work in this example. But because we did some validation, you see the discount was ignored for the BMW because 300% is not accepted. It should be something between 0 and 100. So now I'm applying 50%. So now it worked. It's now 25,000. Let's go back and see what we have also. We still have other things to do. Okay, good. Enum enumeration. If there are cases, many cases, where you have only a list of values for something, Like, for example, day of the week can only be either Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday. Month of the year, there are only 12 values. Prayers, there are 5 prayer times. Does that make sense? Yeah, like traffic light can be either green or red or yellow. There are situations where you have simple list of values, limited set of values. This is perfect when you use enumeration. However, enumeration, what we teach you in chapter 7 is the basics of enumeration, chapter 6, sorry. Later, there are advanced uses of enumerations. But now, what we're going to do? We're going to use enumeration to tell us the type of the fuel of the car. There are 4 available types of fuel here in this example. It can be either gasoline, it can be either gasoline, which is petrol, or diesel, or hybrid, or electric. So we're going to add a new attribute to the class, which is fuel. The fuel is not going to be an integer. The fuel is not going to be a double. The fuel is not a string. The fuel is going to be something called enumeration of this type, fuel type. So we have 4 values. You can put enumerations in you can put enumeration inside your classes. Later, you will learn how to put enumerations outside your classes. So let me go here. This is my class. Let me show you what I'm going to do. I will say public enum. This is how we do it. Inside our class, I'll call it fuel type, all caps. I'll do copy paste. Done, by the way. And I did copy paste from the... So you have 4 different types, either gasoline, hybrid, electric. Now let me explain this one more time. We have a new fuel type enumeration. The only 4 values that are accepted are either gasoline, diesel, hybrid, or electric. You can define this outside your class and use it. But we will do this in chapter 8. However, now we are defining it inside the class. So now, one of the attributes of our car, in addition to make, year, and price, we need to also define fuel type. But fuel type, what type is it? Oh, it's of type fuel type. I can name it fuel if you want, huh? I can name it fuel. Okay? The name is fuel here. So let me show you how we could do this. Private fuel, okay? And I call it fuel type here. So what's this now? One of the attributes of our car will be of type fuel. We define this type. Yani you define it. Okay. Now it's like any other property. You can provide set and get for this one. How to do this? Let us see here. Let us do it here after the last set here. Set price. I can go to source, generate setter and getter. Fuel type is the only one that has no value. Okay. No set and get. And this method will take a fuel and return a fuel. But what is a fuel? Fuel is something I defined here. This is a nice way. You can call it, you can, for example, do day of week. You can do month of year. You can do colors, cities, colleges. Okay, if you say Qatar University, you have 9 colleges. You make college name and you give only 9 values. No other values will be accepted. Now, how to set the fuel type? How to set the fuel type? You can go to the tester here. You can just say here, for example, C1.set fuel type. Okay, you type fuel dot and see what happens. You have 4 options only. You cannot use any other thing. I'll make hybrid, for example, the first one. What about the second one? Let me just do C2.set fuel type, fuel dot, this one is gasoline. So we have 2 cars and we set the fuel type now, which is an enumeration. It's not yani, widely used enumerations, but in this case, it's one of the best choices to use is enumeration. Now, let's go to the car. When I print the car now, as you see here, let me go back. When I print the car object, I don't get the fuel type in this one. It's a good idea whenever you add a new attribute to update the other methods. So I'll go to the car here, to the print details. I can put, for example, let us say here, %s. Between brackets, I will do it. I will do it between even unique brackets like this. So the second one will be a string. So I would say here, this dot get fuel type. Okay, hopefully you can imagine the output now. So it will be like gasoline or something between brackets, like as you see here. Let us save and go to the tester. Let's try to run this now. You see, BMW hybrid Toyota gasoline. Does that make sense? Hopefully this is fine. Does that make sense? Okay, excellent. Fine. Let me see if we have any questions in the chat. Doctor, questions like this, details in the exam, you can ask your teacher. If I'm your teacher, I'll answer your question tomorrow. Okay, but in the exam, usually you get one part. And I believe myself, I'm going to make an announcement today on the exam. We are all going to use the same exam, same structure. However, you will be writing code in the exam. It's more about writing code. But these are not very detailed. But usually in the exam, we will not ask you about those details, questions, and the tiny syntax things. You will be usually asked about things that are very major. Very major, like provide a constructor that does something. Do this, calculate this, do a function, add something, write a new class. But the class, details like this are usually not in the theory exams. They are in the lab projects and lab exams. Let me continue. I still need to do something, I believe. Now, after the fuel type, as you see here, we need now to add one more thing, which is a very useful way, of calculating the taxes. So when you register a car, you are going to pay taxes. How much tax you pay depends on the fuel type, for those who like environment and environment protection. If the fuel type of the car is gasoline or diesel, you pay 30% of the car value. If it's hybrid, you pay 15%. If it's electric, you pay 5%. So this is called registration tax. You're going to calculate it based on the fuel type. So a perfect way to use enums is to use a switch. So I go here to the car class. I will provide a method here, public. This method will return the value of the tax. So public double. Okay, get registration tax. Registration tax. This method will work using the fuel type. I just want you to see something here. Tax is equal to 0. Now, how to use the fuel type in the switch? Very simple. Switch dot, here between brackets, this dot get fuel type. That's it. So now it's a typical switch case, the one you know from other languages or the one you have learned at the beginning with the semester. So you have 4 cases, case and case. Okay. You have case first one, case 1 gasoline. Okay. Case 2, I believe diesel. And you have case 3. Case 3. See, I don't use numbers here. I use the values. Hybrid. And of course, it must be the same thing, huh? And last case is going to be electric. That's it. So now, if it's either gasoline or diesel, the tax will be, I think, 30%. So here I can say tax is equal to this dot get price multiplied by 0.03. This is 30%. And break come out of this. So this code will work for either gasoline or hybrid. Let me copy paste the code here. I will use it for this good. If it's hybrid, I believe it's 15% and break also. If it's electric, I will do this. Get tax is equal to only 5% because if it's electric. So it's going to be 0.5. So now this switch is using the enumeration and it will return a value. Return now the tax. Switch is a perfect way when you use enumerations like this. Enumerations are not widely used, but now you at least you know them in the simplest form. And this is the simplest form of using enumeration. Only one string, multiple strings, you can only have one values. It's like any other thing, like double, integer, or string, but now it's fuel. And it has only these 4 values. The good thing that the user cannot set any other value. Let us see here what we have now. When we go to the tester, and I just need to add these things to the string. Let me say here, after the registration tax, I need to say tax, for example, and %.2f. So now here, I will add one new function here, which is this .get registration tax. So my output now is going to be using all the features and all the methods in the class. Okay, so we have tax. As you see here, tax depends on the type of the fuel, right? Here's 15%. Okay, and here it's 30% because it's gasoline. Okay, if I make this one electric, for example, electric, and run this, as you see that it's only 5% because of that. So this is a good way to do attributes when you have limited list and those lists do not change. Next, we have method overloading. Method overloading, when you have multiple methods of the same in the same class. Like here, we will do, for example, 4 methods with the same name. Get max. However, you cannot do methods with the same name unless the number of attributes or the type of attributes is different. So here they say, we need you to create a class called compare numbers. And you have 4 get max methods, but one takes 2 integers, the other takes 3 integers, the third takes 2 doubles, and the fourth takes 3 doubles. This is fine. You can do this. But you can do that. You cannot do one method with the same name and same number of attributes. Or same number of attributes is fine, but should be different types of attributes. So now here, we need to create a class compare numbers. I will go to the model here, create new class called compare numbers. Okay. This class is very basic, has 4 methods: public, integer, get, max. The first one takes 2 integers, integer A and integer B. So you just need to see which one is the largest. I could say if A is greater than B, if A is greater than B, return A. Very simple method. Return A. Else, return B. Good. Done. Right. We will create another method called getMax, but this time it will take 3 attributes. See, now we cannot do it with the same number of attributes. This time it will take C. See, the moment I added a third parameter here, okay, it's accepted. So how to find the largest of 3? There are many ways how to do it. I'll do the simplest one. Okay, if max is max is less than B, then B is equal to max. This is one algorithm. There are so many ways, okay? And if max is less than C, then max is equal to C. Actually, this should be max is equal to B. So this is one way. And now I return here, return max. Okay. Let's see. So I have two get max methods. One takes 3 attributes, the other takes 2 attributes. So let me just do this here and make sure it's fine. Okay. So max is equal to b. Good. So now you have two methods with the same name. Both return the same data type. However, the first one will find the largest of 2. The second one will find the largest of 3. This is fine. So how, when you run your code, how they're going to differentiate between this? This is not a big deal. It depends on the number of parameters you provide. If you call this class with 2 integer attributes, this method is executed. If you call it with 3 integer attributes, this method is executed. Let me do a quick tester here. A new class test compare, I'll call it test compare. And here I'll provide a main method. I need to import something from that model. Model.compare numbers. I will create a compare numbers here class. Okay. Quickly, I'll try to do this. Cn equals new compare numbers. So now I will say, for example, sysout. I will call the method directly. Cn dot get max. I will send two values, 20 and 10. So now I know the first get max is going to be called. I still can call it with 3 values, 20, 90, and 10. So I know now the second get max will be called. ايش صار عنا هون? The method get max is undefined. ايش صار معي هون? Okay, get max 3 integers, 2 integers. Let us see here. Compare numbers. Okay, get max, 3 numbers. I think it was a question of saving only. Okay, run. I saved the code. So you see, the first one returned 20, the second one returned 90. Okay, so this is called method overloading. You can create other methods as we need here. And for example, you can create quickly one like this that takes 2 doubles. So if you, okay, here, but it must do something different. It must take different types or different number of values. So now this method, it takes 2 doubles. See the same code, but when you provide doubles, this one will be called. So this is called method overloading. Let me test this one here. Okay, test compare. I'll check it with 2.0 and 9.5. Let's see what happens here. Okay, so now the first one will call the first one. The second one will call the second one, and the third one will call the third one. Let's see here. Pair numbers. Okay, get max, double, return AB. Okay, good. I don't see any problem here. Unless something is wrong here. Let's see this. Dot. Okay, get max. You see double, first one. Okay, 2.5. And for example, 4.9. Semicolon that. Okay, so you see here the third one was called. Next, I'll try to do one quick example here when it comes to constructors. I believe constructors here. Constructor overloading and chaining. This is our last example today. And we have other 2 sessions this week. One tomorrow and one on Saturday. Constructor overloading. When you have multiple constructors, but you don't need to repeat the code inside them. The example says, create a class called student. This is a very important example. Create a class called student and has many parameters like, for example, it has an integer, it has ID, it has a name, last name, and GPA and email. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Provide setters and getters for all attributes. However, now they want us to create so many constructors, but without repeating the code, without duplicating the code. In this case, when you have multiple constructors, this is called constructor overloading, like method overloading. However, if you don't want to repeat the code, you're going to do what we call constructor chaining. Let me show you this example and see what happens here. I'll take this a copy paste, so in the class we do this. Okay, I'll go to the model now, create a new class called it student, finish. I'll just copy paste this here so I can use them. Okay. So here I have private, integer ID, next private, string, first name, private, string, last name, and private, double, GPA, and private, string, email. We did the 5 attributes. Setter and getter. Source, generate, setter, and getter. No validation is needed here. However, we have many good validations. Okay, setter and getter for everything. Now we go back to the constructor. They said provide a default constructor. Good. Default constructor that deselect all. It takes no parameter. So we have now one default constructor. This is the only way to create a student now. By calling the default constructor, then you need to set all the values. Good. However, now they need us to create different constructors. Like they need a constructor that takes 3 values: first name, last name, and ID. Let's do this constructor. I will go here and say source, generate constructor using field, only first name, ID, first name, and last name. Good. So now I have a constructor that takes 3 attributes. Right. Next, they want a constructor that takes 4 attributes. The first 3 are the same as the previous one, but now we need to add GPA. And they need next one to be GPA and email. So I'll create this constructor again and say source, constructor using field. I took the GPA with me now. So I have another constructor that takes 4 attributes. They need another constructor that takes 5. So I would go here and say generate constructor using field. I select them all and generate. So now we have 4 constructors to create a student object. One is default that takes no parameter. The other takes 3 parameters. The third takes 4 parameters. And the last one is fully parameterized. We say fully parameterized when the constructor takes all the parameters in its list. But here we see a lot of duplication of code. A lot of duplication of code. Do you see that? Here, this is the same thing repeated here. And now, this thing is repeated here and here. And if you have more constructors, you will see the same problem. Quickly do some example here. Class student test, main method, port, model.student. Okay, I'll create 2 student objects. Student S1 equals new student. In this guy, I will say the ID is 100, and the first name is Ali, the second name is, last name is Hassan. So this is our first student. I have a second student who has this ID. I call it S2. His first name is Jamal, and his last name is Abdullah. And this time I need to provide his GPA is 3.8. I have a third, this is S2, khaliha. I have a third student who will use the last constructor, which is student 3, and his ID is 6666. His name is Ahmad, and his last name is Jassim. And his GPA is 3.5, and his email now is Ahmad at somewhere.com. So now I created 3 student objects, each using a different constructor. This is good. But what is not good, that you have duplicated a lot of code. You have duplicated a lot of code. It's good to have constructor overloading, but to avoid the duplication, you can use what we call chaining. Let me explain to you what chaining is. I'll go to the student class here. Now, no need to repeat this code in the second constructor. See, What is the new thing here? Only the GBA, right? If it's only the GBA, remove this and call the previous constructor. This way you call the previous constructor. This ID, first name, and last name. So now, when you say this ID, first name, last name, and you create a student, this constructor will call the previous constructor, which is going to set the values, and after it finishes, it will only set the new thing. I can do exactly the same thing for the next one. What is the new thing here? The new thing is only the email. I could say this ID, last name, or first name, sorry, first name, last name, GPA. So now if you call the default constructor, this is fine. If you call this constructor, it will work. If you call this constructor will call the previous constructor to do this, these actions here, and only add its own new parameter. If you call the last constructor, it will call the previous constructor, and the previous constructor is going to call the previous one with the first three, and khalas. This is called constructor chaining. You would say, why we need to do this? This is very complicated. It's very complicated maybe in the beginning, but now khalas, you could just do this one once. One good thing, when you have validation, it's very difficult to duplicate the code. Yani here we don't have validation in this example, but if you have validation and the validation code is very complicated, this is much better than just duplicating the code. This is called constructor chaining. Yani our work here, student test, should work, no problem. Yani he was not going to do anything now because we are not printing anything, but it should work because we are calling all types of constructor. Let me also, I can create a student using the constructor S0, I'll call it. I never think I did so. S0, okay, before. Okay, this one using the default constructor. I could say S0.now set ID. It's up to you. It depends on your code, your examples, but at least you know how to do these things. S0.set last name and S0.first name and so on. So I created 4 objects, each with its own constructor. I showed you what is constructor overloading, and I showed you what is constructor chaining, when you call constructors from other constructors. Okay, for me, I will stop recording. I will stop recording here and stop sharing. And I want you